BBC News with Sue Montgomery. The Taliban have announced a caretaker government in Afghanistan, which has been told by the group's secretive spiritual leader to uphold Sharia law. This strict interpretation of Islamic law was widely used when the movement was last in power 2 decades ago. No women were named in the cabinet. Our correspondent Lise Doucette is in Kabul.
It is a hardline Taliban government. It is a victor's cabinet. It includes leading members of the Taliban regime in the 1990s, quite a few who are still on either the US's terrorism watch list or, as in the case of the interim head of the caretaker cabinet, Mullah Akhund, he's on the UN sanctions list. So this is a message to the world that the Taliban have won. They're saying officially that they need more time to perhaps be more inclusive, but as always being said here, most of all by Afghans, judge them by their actions and not by their words.
Medical workers in the western Afghan city of Herat say 3 people were shot dead when the Taliban opened fire at a protest. 7 others were injured. Earlier, the Taliban broke up a demonstration in Kabul involving hundreds of people by firing into the air. The protests were the biggest show of defiance since the Taliban took power. The UN's nuclear watchdog says its monitoring activities in Iran have been seriously undermined. With more details, here's our Middle East analyst, Alan Johnston.
Earlier this year, Iran stopped granting permission for some of the IAEA's inspection work, and now the agency has made clear that this has had a significant impact on its monitoring operation. Tehran reduced its cooperation with the inspectors in retaliation for continuing US economic sanctions. They were imposed by President Trump's administration after he tore up the International Nuclear Accord. President Biden is keen to revive the accord, but talks in Vienna have stalled.
Tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets across Brazil to show support for President Jair Bolsonaro, who's launched new attacks on Congress and the Supreme Court. The BBC's Americas editor, Leonardo Rocha, has more details.
The huge demonstrations in favor of President Bolsonaro have surprised many people. People were wondering, with supporting the polls being so low, if so many people would turn up. So they did. And the opposition decided largely to stay away to avoid clashes. You had a few demonstrations in Rio and in other parts of the country, but the main thing is the support to President Bolsonaro.
World News from the BBC. Protesters in Kosovo have disrupted a news conference by the senior judge of the Kosovo Specialist Chambers, a war crimes tribunal based in The Hague. Ekaterina Trentathilova was heckled in the capital, Pristina. One of the protesters said the judge represented an unjust court. Police made several arrests. The chamber is dealing with allegations of war crimes against former Kosovo Liberation Army commanders. The World Bank has said it's not prepared to assist the government of El Salvador with the implementation of Bitcoin, which has become legal tender in the country. The World Bank criticised what it described as the environmental and transparency shortcomings in the initiative. A recent opinion poll suggests most Salvadorans oppose the change, including these members of the public.
People don't want it. That coin is unstable. There is no price fixing.
Our elderly people find it very difficult to use the technology needed for this virtual coin.
I don't like it. I like going to the shops and using banknotes.
A 19-year-old woman is suing a health authority in northern Spain for $3.5 million for being swapped at birth with another baby girl. Her lawyer told Spanish television the 2 babies were born 5 hours apart. Both had low birth weight, so were put into an incubator room and were then given to the wrong mothers. The mistake didn't emerge until 4 years ago. It's emerged that a bishop in Spain resigned last month because he fell in love with a woman who writes satanic-themed erotic fiction. Xavier Novell, who was a specialist in exorcism, stood down as the Bishop of Solsona in northeastern Spain, following consultations with Roman Catholic leaders, including Pope Francis, after weeks of rumours in his diocese. BBC News.